Okay, today, lesson 23A. This is day number 3 of solving word problems that involve multi-step equations. So, as we've been working through this, we take a look at a word problem and then we try and come up with the algebraic equation that we would use to solve it. The first day, we had word problems that led to two-step equations. And then last lesson was the first of 2 days where we have equations that look like multi-step equations, which typically come from combining like terms before we have a two-step equation to solve. And that's really the same thing that is going to happen today. So a little background knowledge. We have to remember how to solve equations where we combine like terms first. Once we do that, we have a simple two-step equation to solve. And here was a problem that we did in the last lesson. I asked you several questions like, how many things am I trying to find in this problem? 2 numbers. We added those 2 numbers together, and one of them was 18 bigger than the other. So we were trying to find 2 numbers, and we made the first one x. And if one number was 18 bigger than another, then what we did is that led us to x plus 18 for the second number, much like the warm-up today. And we added those things together to make 180 in this one. And then we combined like terms, and then it was a simple two-step equation. Today's are really just an extension on this. And one of the other things we had to make sure that we did in every single problem is we clearly listed what our equation was, and we clearly answer the problem or the question as a complete sentence. And the same thing is true today. All right. And one of the other things is we like to try and always list the smallest thing first. So, number 1. The width of a rectangle is 9 more than the length. If the perimeter is 50, find the length and find the width. Well, the one thing we need to make sure that we remember when we are finding the perimeter of a rectangle or any shape is we add up all the sides. And in a rectangle, we have typically 2 widths and 2 lengths. And so if we're finding the perimeter of any rectangle, we have to add up both widths, and we have to add up both lengths. Is everybody clear on that? Yes or no? Yeah, that part should be easy. We have to keep that in mind when we're setting up our little mini table for these type of problems, because we are adding up 2 widths and 2 lengths. We have to keep that in mind, okay? All right, so let's take a look at the very first sentence. The very first sentence says the width of a rectangle is 9 more than the length. The first question I asked and all the problems last time was this. I asked, how many things are we trying to find? Well, we're trying to find a length and a width, but we actually have 2 widths and 2 lengths. And then the other thing that I asked was which thing was the smallest. And in this problem, the width is 9 more than the length, so that means that the length has to be smaller. So let's list our 2 lengths and our 2 widths. And the most common mistake in these rectangle problems is those of you who aren't taking good notes right now, you will only list one of each. But we're adding, when we find the perimeter, we're adding both lengths and both widths together. And much like last week, or last lesson, we're going to make the smallest thing x. So I put an x underneath of each of the lengths because we have 2 lengths. Now, if the length is x, somebody please tell me what the width would be. And at this point, this part of it is just like the ones that we talked about last time. What's that? Where in the problem does it say that the width is 18? I don't see anywhere in the problem where it says the width is 18. Yes?
X plus 9.
It's x plus 9. If the length is x and the width is 9 more than that, 9 more than x is x plus 9. So this part of it is much like those problems we dealt with last time. And of course we have 2 of those x plus 9s. Because remember, to find the perimeter of any rectangle, we add up 2 lengths and 2 widths. To find the perimeter of any rectangle, we add up all 4 sides. So we're going to add those up. And the total for the perimeter in this problem is supposed to be 50, as it says in the second sentence. And here is the equation that we would use to find the length and the width. I would like you to finish solving for x, and then we'll quickly talk about what that means in the context of this problem. I'll give you about 45 seconds. All right, let's take a look at this. We have our equation x plus 9 plus x plus 9. That's the two widths and the two lengths. We combine like terms. We get 4x plus 18 equals 50. Subtract 18 from both sides. Divide both sides by 4, and we get x equals 8. What in the world does that mean? Well, at this point, it's much like those problems that we talked about last time. If x equals 8, we need to figure out what x represents. X represents the length. So the length is 8. How are we then going to find the width? What would we do?
You add 9.
Yeah, two reasons. Number one, that's what it says in the very first sentence. The width is 9 more than the length. Or you can see it from your little mini table right here. The width is 9 more than that. So that would make the length 9 and the width 17. Now, after this problem, I'm also going to make you draw a rectangle. And here's what I mean by that. Draw a rectangle and then label 8 and 8 and 17 and 17. And then the question would be, does that make sense for this problem? If you add up all four sides, that will be 50. And if you take a look at the length versus the width, you can see that the width is 9 more than the length. So that has to be right. So every problem after this one, I also want you to check it by drawing a rectangle and make sure it satisfies what you're trying to do. All right, everybody, try number 2 all the way through. We'll compare with our shoulder partner after we're finished. Okay, so we compare with our shoulder partner. Most of you have exactly the right thing. It looks good. The length of a rectangle is 7 more than the width. The perimeter is 70. We're finding the width and the length. We need to think about which one is smaller. In this problem, the width is smaller. In the previous one, the length was smaller. If we do that, then we make sure that the first thing is x. So both of our widths are x. The first sentence tells us that the length is 7 more than that. So if the width is x, that makes both lengths x plus 7. And we make sure we've got all four sides taken care of here. We add those four sides up, and that's supposed to be equal to 70. Combine like terms, subtract 14 from both sides. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 14. What does that mean in the context of this problem? Well, it means that the width is 14. The length will be 7 more than that, so the length is 21. So the width is 14 and the length is 21, and I asked you also to draw a rectangle and make sure that that made sense. If you add up all four sides there, we will get 70, and the length is 7 more than the width. All right, let's take a look now at number 3. The rest of the problems are really the same kind of problem, except we've got to make sure that we read a problem very carefully. Number 3, it says the width of a rectangle is twice the length. Clearly, which side is smaller, the width or the length? Yeah, the length. So we're going to list the length first. Okay, and we know we have to add up all four sides, and it's supposed to be equal to 96. So we're going to make both lengths x. That should be very clear. Here's the part where some of you will mess up unless you've seen this before. It says the width is twice the length. Quickly turn to your shoulder partner and talk about for about 20 seconds what you think we're going to use to represent the length, or the width, sorry. So what we came up with for the rest was that twice something, we came up with the fact that twice something means to multiply it by 2. So the rest of this would look like this. 2x for both of the widths. All right, I'm going to let you take it from there and finish it, and then we'll quickly compare with our shoulder partner. Okay, so equation for this one should be x plus 2x plus 2x equals 96. We compare or gather like terms together. We have an x and x, a 2x and a 2x, that's 6x. So we have 6x equals 96. Divide both sides by 6. We get x equals 16. In this problem, x being 16 is what the length is. And then to find the width, we would double that or multiply by 2 to make it twice as big. And if we drew our rectangle right here, 16 and 16 and 32 and 32, that makes 96. So the length is 16 and the width is 32. I would like everybody to try number 4 all the way through. The width of a rectangle is 3 times the length. That means the length is smaller. The width is 3 times that. So when we set up our table, we're going to write lengths first, width second. We're going to make both of the lengths x. Both of the widths would be 3x because they are 3 times as big as the length. We're adding those up because we are finding the perimeter of a rectangle, and we are trying to make 112. Combine like terms, x and 3x, that makes 8 x's equal to 112. You divide both sides by 8, and we get x equals 14. In the context of this problem, that means that the length is 14. To find the width, we multiply that by 3. And remember, we should be checking by labeling our rectangle. 14 times 3 is 42. And when you add up all those sides, that is 112, and 14 times 3 is 42, so that must be correct. So a sentence that would work here is the length is 14 and the width is 42. All right, any questions so far? Yes?
Well, write a sentence doesn't matter what we like write first.
It does not. It does not. She's asking if it matters which one we write first. It doesn't. As long as the sentence that you write is stating what you're trying to find within the problem. Okay? And it doesn't say you have to write one before the other, right?
So,
Yes. Let's take a look now at number 5. Number 5 says the perimeter of a rectangle is 54 feet. The length is 6 feet. What is the width? I would like you to set up the equation that you think would work to solve this problem. I don't want you to go beyond that yet. Just come up with what you think the equation would look like. All right, so let's take a look at this. We know the perimeter is 54 feet. So when I add up all 4 sides, that's supposed to be 54. The difference in this one is that we are given what the length is. The second sentence says the length is 6 feet. So our equation would look something like this. We make both of the widths x, and both lengths should be 6. Why? Because that's what the second sentence says. It says they are both 6. So we now add up all 4 of those sides, and that's supposed to be equal to 54. I want you to take it from there, finish it, and answer the question. Better to me. So we gather like terms. So we have 2x plus 12 equals 54. Subtract 12 from both sides. And then divide both sides by 2. We've now solved so many two-step equations that that part should be easy. We get x equals 21. Like all the other problems, we have to think about what it means in the context of the problem. X represents the width, and we do have units in this problem, so don't forget to include the units. So one sentence that would work would be the width is 21 feet. All right.